In the last 24 hours, Israel targeted the heart of the Hamas terrorist organization's control panel. According to IDF assessments, this strike has successfully eliminated the commander of the military wing of Hamas, Mohammad Deif, along with his deputy brigadier general, Rafa'a Salameh. They were both neutralized in a targeted attack in Khan Yunis. Meanwhile, the IDF attacked targets in 5 different areas in Lebanon, leading to the elimination of Abbas Qasem, a senior Hezbollah field commander. In the Israeli city of Kiryat Shmona, 4 female soldiers were wounded, one seriously, by a barrage of Hezbollah rockets. And finally, there was another mysterious explosion in Iran, this time at one of the Islamic Republic's most important UAV bases. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 281st day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all of its terrorist proxies in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. I want to start by blessing and wishing peace and health to the former President of the United States and the current presidential candidate, Donald Trump, who survived the shooting attack on Saturday evening. I am sending a prayer for his health. Now back to the news. The IDF hit a building in Mawasi. This is a civilian compound that Hamas fenced off in the city of Khan Yunis on Saturday. The target of the strike was Mohammad Deif, the leader of the military wing of Hamas, who has survived several previous attempts to eliminate him. Also targeted in the attack was Rafa'a, the leader of the Khan Yunis brigade of Hamas. Several other Hamas operatives, including men who had been active in the planning and execution of the massacre of October 7th, were also known to be in this compound when it was hit. The compound included trees which offered cover to the terrorists, as well as an open area and small buildings, including a low structure and sheds, allowing the terrorists to move around safely. The IDF had been closely watching this compound for a long time, keeping precision intelligence assets focused on it because they knew it was a prime location for the meeting of senior terrorist leaders. When the intelligence reports came in that some very important terrorist leaders had arrived in the compound, the IDF knew that it was time to strike. The IDF has already learned from the previous cases in which Mohammad Deif survived various attempts to put an end to his terrorist career. The Shin Bet made it clear to the Israeli Air Force personnel and the political echelon which approved the assassination that the complex is a closed Hamas military position where dozens of terrorists are staying, some of whom are defined as senior field personnel. The Shin Bet also determined that there were no Israeli hostages in that compound. The attack itself was carried out in several stages. The first stage was hitting the building where Deif was known to be staying. The second hit was a missile that destroyed the entire building. The third hit targeted a belt of fire around the entire area to prevent forces from coming in to his aid. And the fourth part was a hit by a bunker-penetrating missile that hit the underground portion of the compound. That's a bunker buster missile that can penetrate the ground. It was considered highly likely by the intelligence echelon that the compound had an underground bunker section as well as tunnels leading to other parts of the Hamas tunnel network. The obvious thing for Mohammad Deif to do when the first missiles hit the building would be to try and flee to the underground bunker and from there to the tunnels. The bunker buster bomb was meant to deny him this opportunity in case he managed to survive the initial strike on the building. To give some further background to the situation, already in the first week of the operation, the Prime Minister of Israel gave the elimination order of all senior Hamas officials as a major objective of the campaign in Gaza. From that time, joint teams of the IDF, the Shin Bet, and the Mossad were established that have 2 rules: to gather intelligence and to follow it using technological means. Mohammad Deif was high on the list of their targets because he's the ultimate symbol of Hamas. As the charismatic shadow leader who survived many assassinations attempts by Israel, he became a symbol both to the Hamas fighters and for the IDF and the Shin Bet, who have been searching for him for many years. This circle took many years to close, as Deif evaded 7 previous attempts to put him down, although he was wounded in 4 of these attempts. the elimination of his right-hand man, Rafa'a, is also very significant. He was one of the architects of the October 7th massacre against Israel, and like Deif, he has evaded several previous attempts by Israel to end his evil career. This included a strike on his house during Operation Cast Lead in 2008 and afterwards. To address an issue that is being widely discussed on Sunday, Deif, a chief of staff and the director of the military campaign Hamas has waged against Israel since October 7th, needed to be very mobile. He needed to move around and communicate with Hamas operatives inside the Gaza Strip often, and he also needed to come up from the safety of the tunnels on a regular basis. This meant that he was more vulnerable to the IDF, who could track his movement and hit him when the time was right. In contrast, Hamas Supreme Leader Yair is able to stay safely in the bunker complex beneath the Gaza Strip and not even move around as much within that own complex. This makes him more difficult to track and target, but it doesn't mean he's invulnerable. In the meantime, it is likely that Hamas would like to make a strong reaction to the loss of Deif, but their ability to strike back has been greatly eroded after 9 months of fighting against the IDF. There was relative calm in the Strip on Sunday, although the IDF was on high alert for the possibility that someone would try to fire rockets towards Tel Aviv in the center of Israel. As a footnote, Israeli officials made a point saying that the Americans were not informed in advance of the operation to eliminate Deif. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you, including by sharing with you as soon as possible when it is confirmed that Deif was eliminated in this strike. So please continue to spread the truth, share this video, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Guys, I'm constantly being asked by viewers and supporters how they can help Israel, and today I am proud to introduce an organization that really saves lives in Israel. And that includes Jews, Arabs, and anyone else who needs help. I'm talking about Magen Adom, the medical first response organization that is on the front lines in the south, in the north, on the borders, and he was there also on the 7th of October. The volunteers of Magen Adom are the first line of defense for anyone who is wounded or injured in a terrorist attack or a natural disaster. They are true heroes, standing up in the face of danger every day. Under the attack of rockets and fire from Hamas and Hezbollah, they move in to treat the wounded, even while under fire themselves, committed to reach every wounded person everywhere, providing life-saving treatment and protection. Magen Adom is entirely funded by donors, and they need your help to pay for ambulances and medical equipment, training, and protective equipment for the brave volunteers and more. So please support them through the links that you see in the description of this video. Now back to the news. At the same time that the IDF was firing missiles at the Hamas leadership in Khan Yunis, the 99th Division continued to fight in the Gaza City area. The soldiers of the Commando Brigade joined the operation overnight in the UNRWA headquarters in the region, which is used by the Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist organizations to carry out terrorist operations against our forces in the center of the Gaza Strip. After an orderly passage was opened for the exit of civilians from the area, the soldiers raided the building and eliminated terrorists in face-to-face battles, arrested several others who surrendered, and located many weapons. All of this happened inside a UN facility which is supposed to be off-limits to armed combatants. Elsewhere, soldiers of the 98th Division and the Paratroopers Brigade continued operations in the Sajaiya neighborhood of Gaza City. They eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed tunnels. The 7th Brigade and the Yalam Combat Engineering Unit also announced that their mission in this area is completed after 2 weeks of intense activity. In Rafa'a, the combat teams of Division 162 eliminated a number of terrorists in the last 24 hours in the operations, which included the capture of large stockpiles of weapons and ammunition. Several tunnels were also discovered and demolished in these operations. Soldiers from Division 143 and Unit 414 engaged in several battles with Hamas terrorists in the center of the Gaza Strip, resulting in the destruction of 8 tunnels and several underground bunkers filled with weapons and ammunition, as well as laptops and communication equipment. It must be mentioned that these tunnels are not just dusty holes in the ground meant to be passed through as quickly as possible. They include chambers for resting and eating and are furnished with plumbing facilities, electricity, and other infrastructure. Imagine how much money and time was invested in creating these terror tunnels. So please take an active part in sharing the truth. Look for the follow button and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share our videos with anyone who wants to know what is happening in Israel, and pray for the situation. The fighting in the Gaza Strip now is different from the beginning of the war, and the world's media is finally beginning to notice. The New York Times newspaper, one of the most influential media portals in the United States, published a report over the weekend including a broad overview of Hamas's fighting method. The report quoted Israeli soldiers as well as Hamas terrorists who candidly admitted that they hide in civilian buildings and use children as human shields. The investigation reveals other details about the methods that Hamas uses to fight in the Gaza Strip, including their extensive network of tunnels for covert movement, the use of civilian buildings, including hospitals and United Nations offices, to hide fighters and weapons, the execution of ambushes by fighters disguised as civilians, and the use of children as scouts. According to a Hamas officer quoted in the report, Hamas has been preparing for this moment since at least 2021. At that time, it began increasing the production of explosives and anti-tank missiles in preparation for a ground war, and began producing fewer long-range rockets, according to a Hamas officer. According to him, the Hamas commando fighters have also been trained to remain alert and focused during food and water shortages. As we know, Hamas makes a lot of use of houses and civilian infrastructure, including medical facilities, United Nations offices, and mosques. In order to signal to other terrorists in Hamas, they mark those places with secret signs outside the houses, such as red sheet hanging from a window or graffiti, to signal the imminent presence of mines, entrances to tunnels, or weapons depots. Hamas fighters and Israeli soldiers say that Hamas monitors Israeli locations using intelligence provided by civilian scouts. 5 Israeli soldiers said that these scouts include small children who stand on rooftops and relay information to commanders below. Hamas emerges from the ground for fleeting moments from the maze of tunnels, sometimes armed with anti-tank missiles stored in the tunnel, and this in order to hit the soldiers and quickly return to their underground fortress. Above all, the report highlighted that Hamas tries to drag out the war as much as possible, even at the cost of the civilian lives of the Gaza Strip, in order to embroil Israel in the battle of attrition and increase international criticism of the Jewish state. However, the IDF continues to dismantle the cowardly Hamas army, whose main goal is simply to survive and continue fighting without any regard to the lives of the Gazan civilian population. Switching our focus to the battle in the north, in the last 24 hours, the IDF attacked several positions belonging to the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorist organization in southern Lebanon. This included an attack which resulted in the elimination of Field Commander Abbas Qasem, as well as a rocket launcher in the Rafa'a region that fired at Kiryat Shmona earlier on Saturday, and another 4 launch sites deep in Lebanon. Also in the last 24 hours, the IDF announced that it attacked a central headquarters of the Syrian army. The Syrian Ministry of Defense said that 1 person was neutralized and 3 others were wounded in an Israeli airstrike. It was also reported that the attack was aimed at a number of military posts in the southern region of Syria and at a residential building in the Kfar Susa area of Damascus. Guys, please share this video with anyone who wants to know what is happening in Israel, in this region, so that they know how to pray for the situation. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel And if you'd like to receive more videos like this one, please consider making a financial donation by going to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel or by clicking the donate button on YouTube. Finally, there is a story to bring to you from Iran, where documents recently published on social media say that late last week, explosions were heard at the Shahid Karimi military base, which is the main center for UAV production and deployment located in the center of the Iranian country. Footage that were included in the posts show parts of the base on fire. This is the latest such mysterious event to occur in Iran, which resulted in damage to their industrial capability to produce military weapons. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to keep an eye on events in Iran to bring you the latest information so you can pray for the situation. Please, today more than ever, I want to ask you to join us in prayer. Pray for the peace of the IDF soldiers. Pray hard for the peace of Israel. Pray for the civilians that are affected in this conflict on both sides. Pray for the truth to be spread out in this world. And please join us in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.